we're going to start with Paula. Do you want to quickly introduce yourself?
Thank you very much. So I'm Paula, Kids CEO from Kidscape. I'm only 4 months into the role. However, I've worked in the sector for 30 years and Kidscape has been around for 39 years. So I'm almost as old as Kidscape. So at Kidscape, in case you haven't heard from us before, we provide a lot of resources online. So the first thing to say to everybody is, if you're strapped for resources and cash, there are loads of lesson plans, there are loads of ideas and loads of tools on our website, including things like a journal for children and young people to keep records so that they've got their thoughts collective when they come and speak to you, etc. Top tips for parents, carers, children, young people, and teachers, which is really helpful. We do provide online workshops and we provide workshops in schools for different age groups. And we also work in communities and provide training for professionals. The other thing that we run, which is freely accessible, is a parent and carers advice line. And those details are on our website. Unfortunately, it's time limited, only a couple of days a week, but you can message, you don't have to call. And so it's just a really nice offering to parents where they're really struggling. And if children who come through to that advice line are at the very end of that bullying journey and they've had a lot of trauma attached to their bullying, we can access counselling as well through that service. So yeah, just a bit of an outline. We only had a couple of minutes to give an outline, didn't we?
Cheers, Paula. I'll go over to Cleo.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Cleo. I work for the Diana Award as the programme coordinator on the anti-bullying programme. So a little bit about me. For the last kind of 10 years or so, I've been working as a young person and a professional in the social action sector, specifically around anti-bullying. So I was an anti-bullying ambassador in school, trained by the Diana Award actually. And I ran kind of social action campaigns all the way throughout into the end of sixth form and university as well. And I went on, I was very lucky to be offered a role at the Diana Award to kind of pass on my training as well. So for the last 2 years, I've worked as a facilitator, kind of training up young people as anti-bullying ambassadors in their schools all across the UK. And now what I do is I kind of do the ongoing support side. So once you're trained on our anti-bullying programme, we offer a year and beyond of ongoing support in terms of like catch-up calls, resources, further training, lots of things like that. And so that's my role and what I do. And a little bit more about the Diana Award is we are a charity for young people set up in Princess Diana's name. And we have lots of different programs. We've got mentoring young change makers in the award and development program. We've also our anti-bullying program, which is where I work as well. So I think that's a little bit about me. Thank you.
Thanks, Cleo. And let's go to Katie and Sasha from Peer Action Collective.
Hi everyone, I'm Katie, I'm 17 years old and my project partner is also 17 years old and she's called Sasha. And together we created a project called the See the Difference Project. And it was focused on kind of teaching teachers about the subtle signs of bullying, showing them what students see that they aren't taught as they're being taught to be a teacher kind of thing. And the reason we created this project is we remember we were 15 years old when we created it. So I think I was in year 11 and we would be sat in class and we would see things. We would see students bullying others, but not in the most stereotypical and obvious ways. And we wanted to create something that teachers could see things through a student's kind of perspective.
Yeah, so we originally did this by collecting opinions from our peers and friends to see what they thought about the issue and how teachers handle bullying. Then we used this information to create surveys, and we sent these surveys out to schools and to help get students' voices heard. And we also put a slide into schools weekly, which was sent to teachers all across the UK, which, yeah.
Cheers. Thank you, Sasha. And Neil, do you want to explain a bit about OPAL?
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. So Outdoor Play and Learning, OPAL for short, created nearly 20 years ago now by our director, Michael Follett, former teacher, play worker, used to drive a double-decker bus all over North Yorkshire, taking play to various villages. He was working in schools in and around the Bristol area, and he was trying to solve boredom, behaviour issues, inactivity, bullying, all sorts of just sort of never-ending, year after year, things that were dragging the schools down. And this is in primary schools. We don't do secondary, I'm afraid. Sorry, Mr. Everett, but this primary is only for us. Although we have been asked to do secondaries, but we're not there yet. We're very busy in the primaries. What happened was we developed what we call the OPAL programme. It's a not-for-profit organisation. I joined from Play England in 2012, and the two of us have now grown it to a team of 40. We're in North America, across Asia, all across Europe. Just last week, it was Spain and Singapore started up, Australia, New Zealand. So growing all over the place, about 1,200 schools across the UK. And what we do is we use play as the tool to improve schools. And I've got loads of stats, so we can come back to that maybe a bit later. But the key thing is there are 3 big elements in every primary school year. And they are numeracy, literacy, and play. Each is about 20% of the school year. So we focus on the 20% of the school year that nobody else does. And we transform that element, and that then leaches across into the rest of school culture. So we create the right environment for children. So you won't find a buddy bench anywhere in any of our schools, because the entire school is a buddy bench. Children just make friends naturally through play. It's the lack of good quality play in schools that leads to a lot of the behaviour, first aid, bullying and other issues that schools find. And I did a quick survey last week of some of my schools in and around the Thames Valley, and the head teachers all said the same thing. Bullying's not really an issue in our schools, as far as the children say. They say it all faded away several years ago. It's a 2-year programme. It's a well-structured programme. It's all fully planned. And we don't work with the children. The key thing is we work with the adults. We work with a team of senior leadership, and we work with everyone who does duty in the playground. And when we transform from a controlling and a policing environment to one where the children have the power and the children get the choice and the children do what they want to do every lunchtime, that's when everything starts to change. And within a few months of rolling out the new approach, all our schools say the same thing. It's just so much better for every child. And that's the trick in the end. Every single child has to have satisfaction from what we do. And that's the tricky bit for the school, but we get there.
Thank you, Neil. And finally, I'm going to go to Mark, and then we're going to go to the sort of Q&A part of the activity, the session.
Hi, I'm Mark. I'm head at Poltair. I've been 30 years in the job now and 20 years in senior leadership, worked in a range of different schools. Me and Ella started at the same time in Poltair, and Poltair was, I think it was, I wrote down the other day, it was about 31 out of 35 schools in Cornwall in terms of its outcomes, but also in terms of its culture and its approach to behaviour. It was exceptionally poor, had a record of massive number of exclusions, and we viewed it as a transformed school. Over the past 3 and a bit years, it is now up to the 5th in Cornwall. Our culture, we're oversubscribed, and the culture within the school is incredibly strong, and that comes down to relationships and how we've managed to move the school forward in terms of being very transparent about what we do and why we do it.
Thank you. Thanks, Mark. So what we're going to do for the rest of the session is we're basically going to teachers can ask questions. So if you have any questions for the panels, then please pop them on the chat, and then we'll kind of read them out, and then the panelists will kind of answer your questions. So I'll start with my sort of first question to the panel about, because we've spoken a lot about relationships and kind of play, and if you could kind of choose like 2 or 3 tangible things that you think makes a huge difference or a significant difference to bullying in schools, what would you say it was? And yeah, panelists, feel free to put your hands up. I won't put anyone on the spot. Yeah, Mark?
Well, I'll start. I mean, I was thinking about this the other day. I mean, from our journey, it's very much about transparency and expectations. So we are exceptionally clear on high expectations that we have in school, and that is incredibly transparent. And that transparency means that everyone knows exactly where they stand. They know that what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. And as you move forward from that, you put the structures and the personnel in there to be able to enable reporting for it. Everything is followed through. So it's then about It's not about, you will hear no raised voices in our school whatsoever. It's about consistency, and it's about certainty. So when actions happen, okay, there is a certainty around it, and it is very, very clear, and that then leads to culture. And that culture comes through the relationships that are built with students and with staff. And you'll see, if you walk around our school, you will see a very, very high visible red jackets, very, very visible senior team presence, a very visible staff presence, and not in a policing manner, but in very much of a supportive manner to support students and children as they through their day.
Great, thank you. We had to sort of, we had staff at one of my schools I worked at that had sort of the, we were called the red coats, who those kids also loved, and they were like proper East End mums. They were great. Anyone else, the panel, what do you think really helps bullying? Paula?
Yeah, so I obviously 4 months into this role at Kidscape, but what I've been doing is listening to what comes through to our parent advice line when things aren't going well, but also thinking about what children and young people are telling us, and when those things that aren't going well actually turn into good outcomes. And what strikes me is that the ethos, and similar to what you described, Mark, ethos and culture of the school are absolutely key. You know, kindness and compassion has to run throughout everyone in school, everyone that steps foot in the school. So that's from the parents to the teachers to the head team to the school dinner ladies, if that's what they're called anymore, to children and young people. It's about role modeling the kindness and compassion. Another area that's really struck me is that children and young people generally are bullied because of their differences. And so I've got an actually early years background, and I'm quite keen on thinking about how we can get in earlier at embracing differences, embracing the unique worth of every child. It saddens me that particularly sort of end of primary into secondary school, young people are talking about, how do I fit in? How do I be the same as everybody else? And it should be. And yet when we become adults, we're like, how do I stand out? How do I make myself different? Because we realise that actually being different is special. So we talk on our programmes about finding your superpower and your confidence. I think school environments and the whole school team can really play a role in that, and supporting children and young people to celebrate difference, not celebrate the same. Having said that, another area that has a massive impact on young people that are in a lost, dark place that want to find themselves again is extracurricular activities. So if the school can have a lunchtime club, an evening after school club that actually focuses on interests, common interests, where young people can, if they're a maths geek, for want of a better word, they can go and meet their other maths geeks. If they're into drama and they're a boy, they could go and meet other boys that are into drama, or a girls' football club. So that's what we're finding, is that when young people, even the young people that have been through our counselling service, so they've had pretty traumatic situations, is they're telling us that actually finding other people the same as me just helped me find my confidence again. I wasn't the only person in the class that is different. And I'd say that that's probably across a lot of spheres. SEN children, neurodiversity. We know that all those issues cause additional pressures and vulnerabilities to being bullied. I suppose, and just remember the ethos that we carry through is, and I'm a strong believer in this from my child development background, bullying is a behaviour, and behaviour can change. So offering that hope that it can change, it can get better, and that everybody in that situation can work to change behaviour, whether you were the child who's doing bullying or whether you're the child that's receiving that. Things can change can happen.
Really, yeah, very true, Paula.
What did four, sorry.
Does anyone else on the panel want to answer that one? Yeah, Cleo?
Hi, sorry, I was figuring out how to do the hand raise button. Thank you. Yeah, I think really great points made, and kind of linking to that, I suppose, is what makes me think of is something at the Diana Award we really think is really important in schools, is to have a whole school approach. So very linked to what has been said, but not only having staff and teachers involved into the anti-bullying actions and whatever we're doing in school, but also involving the young people themselves, and parents, carers and guardians, local organisations in your community, like really involving everyone in that whole school approach, so that everyone's aware of what will happen if an incident of bullying behaviour happens. And I think leading from that is something also super important in our eyes, is having youth voice and participation throughout kind of all of the anti-bullying work that we're doing in schools. So, you know, talking to young people, doing surveys, questionnaires, asking them what is it that you need that's going to improve this school and make it more safe and a more secure environment for you to feel safe to report things, and things like that. And I think like developing skills, giving them the opportunity to be a youth leader, an anti-bullying ambassador in school, and really talk to their peers and listen to what's actually going to help them. So a little bit conceptual, but kind of trying to get everyone involved and having that whole school approach, I think, is really, really important.
Yeah, really great. Thank you. Neil?
Yeah, I mean, just echoing what everybody else has said, I think if you look at the causes, what's actually behind the issue, rather than trying to fix it, prevention rather than cure, then I think you have a better chance of succeeding. And what we do is we work on the prevention. So we take away the boredom, the frustration, the causes of all sorts of behaviour, not just bullying behaviour, but all sorts of behaviour. And the data we get back from the schools, from the children through the surveys we do, from the parents that we survey, the staff, all the data, you know, all the schools seem to be on CPOMs these days, recording everything, every incident. They're just not using these tools anymore because it's all just fizzling out. And I think that's the key, is don't create an environment in which these things can flourish, these negativities can flourish. Work on removing them from the environment. And it's about culture change, it's about attitude. It's just making sure that children have what they need in their lives, all of them. You know, I mean, I'm not an expert in bullying, but I read about it. And from what I'm told, it's caused by the bully themselves, what they're feeling, what's driving them to do it. And if you can address that, then I think you're onto a winner. So it's really creating that friendly, open atmosphere. And the trick is to get every child engaged. We don't let any child feel isolated, because we talk to them and make sure they have what they want in life. And not everyone's the same, of course. So that's the trick, is finding out what every single child wants, and it can be very different.
Yeah, really, really good point. And a lot of our students at the student webinar raised that about the sort of bullies and their feelings and kind of where it comes from, which was quite empathetic of them. But yeah, and yeah, it's a really great point. Katie?
Okay, so one of the key things that I think could help with, because it's not going to prevent bullying, but when bullying has occurred and stuff, it's the atmospheres within classrooms. Because I remember back when I was in school, I had this one teacher, and I hated school so much, and I had this one teacher who's called Mr. Tripp, and he had such passion, and he was so passionate about teaching, because most teachers they enjoy teaching, but it's kind of, they lose it in the job. And when I saw Mr. Tripp, there was no bullying in his class because everyone loved him. The lesson was engaging and stuff, and the atmosphere was positive. So when there's a positive atmosphere, bullies and stuff aren't going to feel quite scared and insecure. Whatever it is that's causing it, they're not quite going to feel that as much because they're having fun, they're enjoying it, they're escaping whatever negativity is pushing them forward. So I think atmosphere is a big thing.
Yeah, that's a really great point, because a lot of our secondary students in the webinar said about that they would, they would talk to teachers if they sort of trusted them, if they'd kind of relied on them before. So that's kind of what you're describing, a culture in a classroom that is open and makes people, I don't know, want to be nice, want to sort of be open. It's a really great point. Just kind of a follow-on question for that, Katie. Was there anything in particular that you think that he did that made it like that?
It's difficult to say, but he was one of them teachers that because he was so passionate about teaching, he kind of like did experiments on us, and he'd do different teaching techniques on us, and then he would adapt his learning to students. He made every student feel special, and it made me realize I'm a visual learner because he did a lesson on that, and I was like, that works for me. And it's that it is students feel seen. They don't see the teacher as a robot or anything. They see them as a human.
Really great. Thanks, Katie. Sasha?
And I think that since bullying never really has a set form and is very personal to the individual, I think teachers should maybe focus on how students react, the interaction with their peers. For example, if like the students are doing group work and student is being maybe excluded slightly, that could be bullying. And I think I saw that a lot when I was in school in classrooms. And it could be that those students are being excluded on purpose. And I think that's sort of what teachers have to look out for a lot of the time.
Yeah, really great point. Thank you. I'm just going to have a look at one of the questions that the question we put on the chat, which was directed at Mark, and about how you draw the line between in-school bullying and outside of school bullying and social media. And obviously, Mark, you have answered that, but just I wondered if there was any kind of more extension you can have where on, like, you know, social media outside of school bullying. I was a secondary English teacher for 4 years, and definitely when something happened online, all the teachers were a little bit like, is that us? Is it not? So, how could you expand a little bit more on kind of what you do there?
So we have a very, very, very clear system of expectations in the school, and we have a member of staff who's our behaviour lead who spends his entire day dealing with these issues. Okay, so he will be around, it's very visible around the school all the time. Okay, anything that is then reported in by parents, anything that's reported in by bullying forms or reported back into it, we'll have the conversation about appropriate social media with them. Those children we spoke to, there are sanctions in place for those children. That's very clear. Okay, and we just have that very consistent approach that it is about the safety and the well-being of the child as a victim, but also then about how we actually deal with the perpetrators as well. And it's just everything is transparent. Okay, it's very, very clear, so everyone knows exactly where they stand. There's no muddling of the waters. There's no sort of, well, is it this child didn't mean it, or it happens, it's sanctioned. It's as simple as that.
Okay, so get that sort of one clear rule, one stop for everything. Okay, I'm going to look at Victoria's question. Katie and Sasha, are there resources that you developed for use within school to identify hidden bullying that is sometimes not seen? Does anyone know of organisation that visits schools and use drama? That's actually really annoying because we had a really good one that was at one of my schools, and it was too long ago to actually remember what they were called, but they were really good. I'm trying to think if there's a way I can find that, but some of our panelists, or if any of the teachers know the answer to any organisations that visit and use drama, then pop it on the chat. Lots of the primary students at the student webinar said that was a really good way of doing that. But I'll go to Katie and Sasha to answer the first question about hidden bullying.
So unfortunately, in our project, it was all over the place because we were 15. We had high expectations and stuff. So originally we created leaflets, and the leaflets we aimed to send out to schools, but obviously schools are busy. Teachers are stressed, kind of thing, so we struggled to get in. But then we created an online kind of like video talk through of the leaflet, sharing the information. And soon we plan on doing another lot of the information because students are always changing. There's always new voices to be heard, and we are more. There's no set thing of hidden bullying. It's more. I don't know how to word it, but students see things differently. And we are just acting as a way that students can talk to teachers without the pressure, kind of, in that sense.
Sasha, anything to add, or is
yeah, I think we were thinking of doing a podcast where we kind of get more students' voices and talk about what they think the signs of bullying are. So that might happen. We're not sure though. So.
Yeah, it's a lovely idea though. Okay, Brookside said a challenge we have is when a relationship issue between two students becomes bullying. And Brookside, do you want to kind of expand what you mean there?
Just there's been quite a few cases where we're looking at things through trying to unpick where the behaviour started. Often one child might be saying that the other child actually started this, so they might be being accused of the bullying behaviour. And the difficulty really comes even from the parents, really, when they then are saying, well, this other child has done this sort of stuff to retaliate back. It can be really hard to know who the actual person is that's instigating it. Are they both doing things to each other? You know, there's just so much history in some of these cases that it's really hard to just very explicitly say, right, that is bullying, you know.
Yeah, no, really. Yeah, really great point. Has anyone got any kind of advice on that, and when the sort of the cause of the bullying is a little bit of a grey area? Mark, go for it. You're on mute.
We're just very black and white. It's investigated, and then both people are sanctioned. That's it.
Okay. What sort of sanctions do you often use?
So we have various number of sanctions, something from detention. We tend not to exclude. So we do we move between schools if we need to, just for a short period of time. We do use what we call the reset room, okay, which is a 24-hour sanction, okay, and it is done in a supportive manner to make sure those children learn from that experience. There will then be pastoral support in around those to make sure that those incidents happen, but it's very clearly laid out as this is the ground zero approach. Anything then happens as a result of anything afterwards, it's very clear at that point who the perpetrator is and how you move that forward.
Great, thank you. Cleo?
Yeah, thank you. I think something I brought to mind was kind of incorporating restorative practice within how different things are responded to, which is like including everyone, having everyone's voice be part of it. So I was thinking if you had an issue where you're not quite sure, if everyone felt comfortable potentially bringing people together or allowing everyone separately to have a chance to kind of use their voice and tell you what's going on, and kind of combining that, especially with what Mark said as well. So yeah, hopefully that's helpful in terms of how to approach it. I know it can be difficult because every situation is completely different and every young person is completely different. So it can not necessarily be a one size fits all. But I would recommend within your anti-bullying policy, if it's something that you're having, it's something that's recurring or you feel like you can't get to the bottom of it all the time, then maybe kind of reviewing your anti-bullying policy and working with young people as well and staff to add in a section that kind of mentions that and what action will be taken, I suppose, as more of a preventative measure, or just so that young people as well know exactly what will happen, whether it's bullying behaviour or a relationship conflict. There's something there that they can refer to so that they know what will happen. So hopefully that's helpful.
Paula? Thank you, Cleo. That was really helpful.
Thank you. Yeah, this is such a common problem, and actually a common, especially in sort of more the youth end of the kind of age groups in secondary school. And I think that first of all, sort of having some very clear relationship-based kind of education is really helpful. You know, that helps create that culture of kindness and compassion, but also having some skills development tools there to how to work, how children and young people can work through conflict in a restorative practice way. So, you know, it's quite normal for teenagers to fall out. What then happens though is the behaviour boundaries sort of get crossed because actually feelings get more tense and they often haven't got the tools or the language or the mechanism or the time sometimes to just discuss and work through those differences. So I think I know it's a bit of a luxury to say find some time, but it can prevent things escalating and getting worse. And it's certainly something that we find some of our parents come through to the advice line, go back to schools and do that with the schools. So involving parents in that. It's a really tricky situation. But the more we can do to prevent, it's a bit like safeguarding almost. The more you can do to be upfront and open in the beginning, similar to what Mark's saying about what the expectations are, what's available if things start to go wrong. and then children and people can pick that up when they need to.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Paula. I'm going to move on to the next question. So Kate and James have both raised the issue of snitching. And this came up both in our primary webinar and our secondary webinar. There's this big fear, which both Kate and James mentioned, about being labelled a snitch, telling someone about being bullied or someone else being bullied, and then, you know, getting that sort of label, which, as James pointed out, can lead to more kind of isolation. So that kind of puts kids off reporting bullying, because if it gets out that they said anything, it's kind of a mark on their reputation, I guess. So panelists, or Ella, because obviously you're sort of still kind of fresh out of the classroom, if you've got any ideas, no pressure though. Anyone kind of want to sort of answer how we kind of break that culture, or how we find a way around it? Yeah, Cleo?
Thank you. Yeah, I think this is a really interesting point, and definitely something that from when I was in school and now speaking to schools and young people is definitely on their minds a lot. Something that I really like to live by in this area of talking about bullying behaviour is really putting forward to young people that snitching, the word, is about getting someone into trouble, and that's kind of what we think of when we talk about snitching. But reporting is about getting someone out of trouble. So I think if in any way we can start to reframe that in schools and start to have kind of educate or assemblies, or just kind of igniting cultural change around that shift. So really putting forward to young people that reporting that, whether it's about you or not, is going to help someone. And again, that links back to, I suppose, having a really robust and clear student-friendly anti-bullying policy, so that they can be aware of that kind of from the moment they come into school as well. So yeah, I always think trying to do that reframe, and really we've got resources on this as well. So if anyone wants any, I can always send them on afterwards. But yeah, kind of doing some workshops and really reframing how we're thinking about that.
Okay, thank you. Ella?
Yeah, so when I joined Poltair School, I was only in year 9. So I'd spent a couple of years previously in a secondary school in northeast London. And I think one of the differences between the two schools is how they handled incidents like bullying. And I think that kind of impacts the amount that people kind of listened to whether they were being considered a snitch or not. So in a school where they didn't really deal with bullying incidents, or bullying kind of happened more often because people were too scared to report it, and it was maybe a bit more severe, then people were scared of being snitches because it was kind of more prominent. But then going to a school where it is dealt with properly, it's dealt with quickly, and you know that once it's done, you're kind of less worried about being a snitch, because you know that it will be dealt with, and you no longer really have that kind of fear of being attacked for trying to protect yourself. It kind of doesn't sound like the wrong wording, but that kind of thing, for trying to or ease yourself of that worry. So I think it does depend on the school's policy and how quickly and how well they handle issues like that, as to whether snitching becomes more of an issue.
Really great, Ella. Neil?
Yeah, as I said earlier, my focus is very much on primary rather than secondary. There's the phrase that I hear is tale telling. Yeah, that seems to be the sort of the way it's presented by the adults in a school, and they say, "Oh, the tale telling's disappeared," and what maybe they are talking about snitching, maybe they are talking about bullying, maybe they're talking about all sorts of other bits and pieces that are perceived as tale telling. But what we find is, once you train the staff in the techniques that they need, and we have this thing called the cloak of invisibility. So when we're working with the staff in a school, I mean the whole school staff, in an inset and our training sessions, the first thing we ask them pretty much is, in your own favorite play memories from your own childhood, is there an adult present? And invariably the answer is no. And of course the truth is probably that there was, but they don't recognize it as such. They think they're free to do exactly what they want to do and behave in a way that's comfortable for them. And so it's teaching the staff in schools today not to hover, not to helicopter, not to make themselves feel present in the eyes of a child or the mind of a child, but actually to wear the cloak of invisibility, of course, to be there. And whether it's wearing a bright red jacket or a luminous vest or whatever it is, you are there. And if a child needs you, they only need look up, look around and spot an adult. But the adults don't put their size nines into it. They don't make themselves felt in the play world. So because there's this thing we call the play cycle, where the child or group of children are in their world. And we've learned how to not break that cycle, to make it work until the time that it does get broken, which of course is time to tidy up and go back into class after lunch. But whilst they're outside, they are in a place of mental well-being as well as physical activity. And it's teaching the staff the techniques to support and enable that whilst not influencing it, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, no, massively. And just interesting that we kind of mentioned the staff, because there've been a few mentions of a whole school approach. And I've worked in a school where there is a whole school approach, and I've worked in a school where you're pretty much on your own, mate. And I'm sure there's kind of NQTs and just like kind of teachers and stuff who kind of feel like the management is not quite, you know, on it and aren't really in a position to influence whole school change. So I wonder what kind of advice anyone would give to sort of the individual teacher that they think that kind of might be able to help, you know, if the sort of management is kind of way off. So Nick, hi Nick. So Nick's here from GC, so she's popped in halfway through. I didn't notice you there. So Nick, do you want to quickly introduce yourself and then give your answer? You're on mute.
Yep. Oh, first one of the year. Thank you. Sorry, I've just been doing a school run, so I'm back now. I am the founder of a global equality collective. You can find us at thegec.education. So the work that we do is based on my doctorate work and my work 23 years as a senior school leader in education and looking at workplace culture. And I think what I would say is if you are an individual teacher that is struggling with your culture, is look for allies and champions. And they may not necessarily be your line manager, they may not be in your department, but I guarantee that there will be someone in there. If you feel that internally in your school there isn't, there are loads of organisations like ours, like others, where you can reach out and get some support on how to best approach these things. You've also got your union. So if there's bullying, which is staff, all students length, there's lots of organisations that can help you. Particularly around things like either misogyny or e-safety, there's lots of different ways you can look at it. If you're the opposite, if you're a school leader trying to help your culture, one of the things that we do is help capture anonymous staff and student voices when it comes to safety in schools. And we find that's really important to be able to evidence back based on our academically tested statements, what actually is going on, particularly for your marginalised staff and students who don't normally get the say or the power and the justice. So as a cultural kind of piece, there's a cultural health check that needs to be done to support ecosystems to have and to hold those conversations. And I can see people nodding, so thank you very much. So I think there's lots of help out there. It's where you go first, where you feel confident talking to get help in how you even tackle bullying, let alone the bullying itself, which can sometimes be the biggest barrier.
Thank you, Nick. Any other ideas? I've written conscious of the time about kind of what individual teachers, obviously Katie talked about that sort of culture that one of her teachers created in the classroom, and you know what Neil's is sharing is you know it is stuff that kind of teachers is stuff that kind of teachers individually can help with. Any other points on that front? Cleo?
Sorry, constantly putting my hand up. Oh, so I was thinking, is it all right to go? Yeah, I was thinking just to recommend, we have free training that we offer to schools across the UK, and all of our trainings are free, kind of a mix of online and offline. But I think my recommendation for that question would be to kind of reach out, if possible, to the young people in your school, develop those skills, come along to one of our trainings if you like, and kind of empower them to tell you and to talk to their peers about what can be kind of done within school. And I think just from the schools I speak to every day, lots of students are itching to help staff with this. So just a reminder where possible, if I know time is so limited as a teacher, but if you can kind of form a team with your students, that I think would really, really help.
That was also brought up at our webinars. Lots of them said about kind of your anti-bullying ambassadors and preferring to speak to particularly an older student rather than a teacher. And so you've got that, you know, it's someone that they associate with. Paula?
Yeah, just on that point of, you know, you could be the only member of staff that wants to do something to address bullying or change the culture, and you're fighting against other issues or other kind of priorities. It's just to remember that even a single person's interaction with somebody who is in a place of not feeling safe can make all the difference. And we talk to children and young people who are right at the very end, you know, the high end of the impact of trauma and bullying. And it is often, I think it was your young people, Katie and Sasha were describing about remembering that teacher that was a safe place to go. You really can make a difference or life or death to some of these young people that are in a real state of distress. So not to end on that kind of note, but on a positive note, even if you're a single teacher trying to make change, you can create change by yourself.